Hey, what's up YouTube? It's the Common Collector here, coming at you with my first deck profile. I really couldn't think of anything better to do than my Harpie deck. I've been running this ever since 2014 when Harpie Channeler first came out. So I thought that this would be the best deck to start with, the one that I'm most comfortable with, and since it's recently gotten new support in the legendary Duelist 4, I believe it was called, Duelist of the Roses, I figured that this would be a really good one to start with. So let's just get right into it. Starting off, we have 3 Harpie Channeler. Now what Harpie Channeler does is that all of the Harpies in this deck are treated as Harpie Lady while on the field. At least all of the level 4s are. So her effect is that once per turn you can discard 1 Harpie card. I believe it's been errated actually to 1 Harpie monster. But anyways, you can discard 1 Harpie monster in order to special summon another Harpie monster from your deck in defense position, I believe, and except for herself. Your main target with this is usually to go for your Harpies Pet Dragon. But besides that, you can go into some rank 4 plays as well, but you go for your dragon hits the field and she becomes a level 7, then you can go into your rank 7 plays, and then that's where the deck can really get some power going. You can only use that effect once per turn, and once again, like I said, her name is always treated as Harpie Lady while on the field or in the graveyard. Our next card is our usual discard card. We're running 3 Harpie Harpus. Now Harpus effect is that once per turn, when she's normal summoned, you can target 1 winged beast type monster on the field, and except for herself, and 1 face-up monster that your opponent controls, and return them to the hand. Now this instance doesn't come up all the time. However, it could be something useful. I've never really used that effect. She's basically just your discard card for Channeler, because her other effect is that during the end phase when she hits the graveyard, you can get a level 4 winged beast monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand, which is pretty much all of them except for herself, as well as Harpie Queen. So and you're usually not searching Queen out very much nowadays, since many people don't play too much back row. Anyways, next card is going to be 3 Perfumer. Now Perfumer is our newest best card for the deck. Perfumer, basically, when you summon her, when she's summoned, normal or special, you get to add 1 card from your deck to your hand that lists Harpie Lady Sisters in its name in the text of the spell card. So basically, you summon this, you can add your Elegant Egotist to your hand, or one of the others. There's Elegant Egotist, there's Alluring Mirror Split, and Harpie's Feather Rest. So those are your 3 targets usually, and if you want to run any of the other spell cards, I don't usually run them, but yeah, that's definitely the best 3 to keep in the deck, and we're running all of those. Next we're running, her second effect is that you can add a second such card as long as you have a level 5 or higher Harpie on the field. So basically the strategy is that you summon Channeler, use Channeler's effect to get Harpie Dragon, Harpie's Pet Dragon onto the field, you summon this card, and then you get 2 cards into your hand that list Harpie Lady Sisters in its card text. That, or if you have Harpie Lady Sisters on the field and then you can summon this, then you'll still get the 2 cards because she's a level 5 or higher Harpie. Next we're going to be running 2 Harpie Oracle. Now Oracle is a really interesting card. You don't really need 3. 2 is a really solid number, but basically she's a lot like Perfumer, where if you have a level 5 or higher Harpie, you get a special effect. So her effect is that if you have a level 5 or higher Harpie, you can special summon her straight from the hand. Now she's pretty much the only special summon from hand Harpie out there, so she's a real solid addition to the deck. Her second effect is really good. You have to activate it during the time that she's normal or special summon, but if you do so, then you can add a spell or trap from your graveyard to your hand that specifically lists Harpie Lady Sisters in its text. So that means you can get back your elegant egotist that you've used, an alluring mirror split, or get back that Harpie's feather rest, which is also usually a pretty good call. Next, we're going to be running two Harpie Queens. She's a really good card. She's basically just like a Gravekeeper Commandant. You just ditch her, and you're going to get to add your field spell into your hand. Basically a terraforming for Harpies. Really helps set up your graveyard a little bit for some of your other plays. And she's a 1900 beat stick if you ever really need it, but you don't usually ever use that effect. Also, for another we're running two of the Harpie Lady 1s. Now this card is a little different. It's treated as Harpie Lady always, whether in the field, graveyard, hand, or deck as well. So that means that she's a target for your Elegant Egotist as well. So none of the prior cards have been Elegant Egotist targets. However, Harpie Lady number 1 is. And then she'll also boost your other monsters by 300 attack, which isn't very important, but it can be used for when you're trying to finish off the duel or just beat over a big boss monster. Next, for a one of, is Harpie Lady Sisters, obviously. Got to have that in the deck to get off some of your other big plays. Two Harpies Pet Dragon. Now, you can run one of these, and all three of these cards here are kind of garnets or bricks in your hand if you ever draw them. But I do highly recommend this ratio of keeping two, because there's sometimes when you can start the duel, you'll end up drawing one of these, and then you get your channeler later on in the duel, and you want to get a rank 7 play going, and you just can't get into it. So I really do like having two of them in here. It's just nice for if you accidentally draw into one, and they're good discard fodder for some of the other cards coming up. Lastly, I just run one Zephyros, Blackwing Zephyros the Elite. He's got a good effect that he's also a wing beast, so he works good with synergy for some of the XZ plays that we go for. He's also a level 4. But basically, if he's in your graveyard, you can take a face-up card on your side of the field, bounce it back to your hand, and just take 400 damage. You can only do that once per duel, but it's a very good effect. And I mean, you can use this with so many cards in this deck, because there's so many there's a continuous spell, there's a field spell, there's just so many targets that you can go for this, or you can bounce up your continuous trap card and get the effect off again later. Next, for spells, we're going to be running two of the Harpie's Hunting Ground. Every time that you summon a Harpie Lady or Harpie Lady Sisters, you get to pop a card, spell or trap on the field. It'll also boost all of your winged beast type monsters by 200 attack. This is a mandatory effect, so if your opponent doesn't have any targets and you summon a Harpie to the field, then you will have to pop one of your cards, but you can also use that to your advantage as well. The target that you mainly want to hit with that is Hysterics Ein, and I'll tell you this right now, you have to run 3 of this card. Hysterics Ein is one of your best cards in the deck. Basically, when this card's activated, you get to add an Elegant Egotist from your deck or your graveyard to your hand, which is a very good effect that you can get off every now and then. However, the main effect is that during the end phase of the turn, when this is sent to the graveyard, you can, from the field or hand to the graveyard, you get to add 3 Harpie cards with different names from your deck to your hand. Now it just says Harpie cards, which means that you can add spells or traps or monsters, whatever you want. This is just one of the best cards that you can get going for this deck. Basically, with all the discard fodder that we run in this deck, you want this to get into your hand and chuck it right away, and then during the end phase of that turn, you're going to be able to get off getting 3 cards from your deck to your hand. Or if you don't have any of your discard cards, you can activate it, get your Elegant Egotist to your hand, hope that you're going to eventually get one of your hunting grounds later, and then when you summon a Harpie, you can pop your own Hysterics Ein, and then you'll get both effects off. But you can only use 1 effect per turn, so that's just kind of one thing that you got to look out for, is if you use that and your opponent MSTs you or something, then you're not going to get off that second effect. It is another good strategy to sometimes just set the card, and then if your opponent pops it, or you set it during your turn, summon a monster with hunting ground on the field, then you're going to be able to pop this card without using the first effect, and you'll get your plays rolling on your next turn. Next up, we're going to be running one Alluring Mirror Split. Now this is not a searchable card usually, with not with Hysterics Ein or anything, but it is searchable with your Oracle and your Harpie Perfumer. So now this card it's just sort of a card for when you're in battle, which doesn't come off very often. That's why we're only running one of them. But whenever your Harpie Ladies or Harpie Lady Sisters is destroyed by battle, you get to special summon another Harpie from your deck with a different original name. And this also does work for Harpies Pet Dragon. It's a very nice target sometimes, because if your opponent is in the middle of their battle phase, they attack with their biggest monster, and then you slap out Harpies Pet Dragon with 2,500 defense, then sometimes that's just going to end their battle phase, and it gets really frustrating. And then on your next turn, then you can go in for summoning Oracle, special summoning Oracle, specialing Perfumer, and potentially getting off some other plays. And then also when this card goes to the graveyard, either by your effect from a Harpie card, such as your Harpie's Hunting Ground, or by an opponent's card effect, then you get to target a Harpie monster in your graveyard and special summon it. And so that goes off pretty nicely every now and then. That'll also give you your Harpie's Pet Dragon back if it does ever hit the ground, or hits the graveyard, then you can bounce it back to the field. Then we're going to be running two Harpie's Feather Rest. This is just such a great card. It works really good at 2, because you can bounce it back with Oracle, and it's searchable from Perfumer. I really like it though, because when you have either your Harpie Lady Sisters or your Harpie's Pet Dragon on the field, it's going to allow you to get 2 Harpie cards from your deck. I'm sorry, I should just start over. I'll just read the effect. You get 3 Harpie Ladies or Harpie Lady Sisters from your graveyard. Then you get to shuffle them back into your deck. Then you get to draw 1 card. But if you have a level 5 or higher Harpie monster, which is generally when you want to activate this card, then you're going to be able to draw 2 cards instead. However, the one caveat for this card is that for the rest of the turn, you're not going to be able to special summon monsters except for wind monsters, but we do run a pretty good number of wind monsters in the extra deck, and every monster in this deck except for your Blackwing Zephyros are all wind monsters, so that usually doesn't really hurt us too bad. But definitely a very valuable card. This card, along with Oracle and Perfumer, all go off with that having a level 5 or higher Harpie monster to get bonus effects, which is just really super for this deck, and it was kind of something that this deck was missing, and it's really helped to advance it along the way. Next, you're going to be playing two Elegant Egotists. Basically, if you have a Harpie Lady on the field, everyone knows what this does, but I'll read it anyway. If you have a Harpie Lady on the field, then you can special summon a Harpie Lady or a Harpie Lady Sister from your hand or your deck. So unfortunately, sometimes you do draw into your Harpie Lady Sisters. This will still let you get it out if it is in your hand. Otherwise, other stuff that you can do is you can ditch your Harpie Lady Sisters, use your Harpie's Feather Rest, put it back into your deck, and then once you get into your Elegant Egotist, then you can use that. And Elegant Egotist is searchable from Hysterics Ein, which is super nice. It's nice that you can bring it back from your graveyard. I really like that effect, but sometimes if you want to thin out your deck and you want to search from the deck still and then wait till you get another Hysterics Ein, you can do that also. Next, we're just going to be running 1 Monster Reborn and then 1 Card Destruction. Card Destruction is really nice in here because you have so many cards that you can discard. You can discard Zephyros in order to get his effect back off. You can discard dead cards in your hand like Harpie Lady Sisters or Harpie's Pet Dragon. And your main target for Card Destruction is definitely Hysterics Ein. You want to get Hysterics Ein and possibly a Zephyros in your hand, activate Card Destruction. That'll allow you to draw 2 new cards. You're going to set up your graveyard really well, and then during the end phase you're going to get to add 3 more cards to your hand. And if you ever get that off and you survive through your next turn, your opponent's going to have a lot to struggle with. Next, we're going to be running just 1 Called by the Grave. And the reason why we're only running 1 Called by the Grave is because we're running 3 of the new trap card, Harpie's Feather Storm. But basically, as long as you have a winged beast monster on the field, until the end of the turn you can negate any monster effects that your opponent activates until the end of the turn. And then if you control a Harpie monster, you can activate this from your hand. This just works so nice because it is a trap card, but when it's your turn, if you're going first and your opponent wants to Ash Blossom you, you can just send this once you get your Harpie on the field, and they're not going to get that effect off. It's going to cut that out. And or if your opponent's going to be making some big plays on their turn, and you have, say, you've got your Harpies Pet Dragon or something on the field, and then, or actually that wouldn't go off. But if you had your Harpie Channeler on the field or something, then you just pop that off. They're not going to get their activated effects off for the turn, and it's going to help protect you and your monsters and really slow them down. Next, we're playing 3 Hysteric Parties. This just works so good with really setting up your board again. If you ever get your board destroyed, this will just get you right back into the game. Otherwise, this deck really doesn't have too much recursion for it. So I really highly recommend running 3. The only problem is that with the Harpie's Feather Rest, that you do end up sometimes, you'll shuffle back in 3 of your Harpie cards, and then that makes it so you're not going to get as many cards off from your Hysteric Party, but it's still a pretty explosive play. You just discard 1 card, and then you can special summon as many Harpie Ladies from your graveyard, and then while this is on the... If this face-up card leaves the field, you have to destroy the monsters. But one really good play that you can do, activate this, discard your Hysterics Ein, and then your Hysterics Ein is going to be in your graveyard setup, so you can add more cards from your deck to your hand during the end phase. And then basically, if you have Zephyros in your graveyard, once your other cards are done being targeted, if you go into some link plays and you get rid of the monsters that are targeted by this, then this will just sit there. You can pop it back to your hand, get your Zephyros to your field, and then you can activate this again on your next turn. Next, we're running 1 Solemn Warning, and then 1 Magical Hats. Now, you might be kind of curious about the Magical Hats, but I believe a lot of people play this in their deck. I've always liked it. You have to have at least 1 copy in your deck. I highly recommend it. But basically, when you're in your battle phase, then you choose 2 non-monster cards from your deck, and then your opponent has to randomly attack one of those cards. Basically, you want to go for your Hysterics Ein, because that will be getting sent. It doesn't have to be destroyed, it just has to be getting sent from the field or graveyard. So that goes face down by your Magical Hats, along with your monster getting attacked and 1 other spell or trap card, doesn't matter which. Then that'll go to the graveyard during the end phase, or if they battle into it, and you're going to get off all of those cards back to your hand. So I highly recommend the Magical Hats. It's a very good card to keep in here. And generally, if your opponent starts accidentally popping off Hysterics Eins for you, or they pop off, they want to get rid of your field spell, or they want to get rid of your alluring mirror split, hopefully they'll get rid of their Nightmare Phoenix or other back row disposal cards, MSTs, and then hopefully you'll still get off this Magical Hats. That's kind of how it works sometimes. They'll get rid of some of these other pesky cards that are sitting around, and then you'll get your Magical Hats off, and they've got nothing to destroy it or negate it before it can go off. Anyways, that's it for the main deck. Alright, so let's get into the extra deck. So we're going to be running 1 Harpie's Pet Phantasmal Dragon. Now this card's been kind of power crept lately. It really wasn't even that great back in 2015. Just because it has such a high cost of having 3 level 4 wind monsters, which does happen since we have our Hysteric Party, but this card's just not that great anymore. I could see instances where you would go into this trying to attack your opponent directly for 2,000 damage, and it's also good for not letting your Harpies get targeted by your opponent. So I do like that effect. So I do like keeping 1 of him in there. Next, we're going into 1 Lightning Chidori. when it's summoned, you get to pop a set card back to your opponent's, to the bottom of your opponent's deck, and then you get to detach material in order to send a face-up card that your opponent has and pop it back to the top of their deck, which can really make some frustrating plays for your opponent. You know, they have their boss monster on the field, you pop it back onto the top of their deck, and they just get so frustrated. But it really is a nice way to kind of get around non-destruction effects or other stuff like that. Next, we're going with one Ice Beast Zerofine. Zerofine is definitely the MVP of the deck. She's just super valuable because you get to detach material in order to negate all of your opponent's face-up effects that they have on the field. And then you get to add 300 attack to this card for each face-up card currently on the field except for herself. So I mean, there's times where, you know, if there's even 5 other face-up cards on the field, this card's going to get up to 3,500 attack, not including if you have your face-up field spell or something on the field, which usually you do, and then that'll count as one of the face-up cards to gain attack from. And this card can just beat over any of those boss monsters that can't be destroyed by battle or they can't be destroyed by card effects. Just a real handy card to have in the deck. I wish I could put it up to 2. If I ever wanted to, I would probably take out Phantasmal Dragon. But this card definitely could get run at 2. Next, we're going with one Abyss Dweller just to stop some graveyard effects. 101 Silent Honor Arc just to get rid of pesky special summon monsters. I try to save Zerofine for when I really need her. You know, usually I'll go into Honor Arc if there's just something to get rid of, or Nightmare Cerberus as a link monster, but this is when I can't get over really heavy boss monsters. This is just, you know, this is definitely what you want to go into first, and save this for when there's face-up effects or a boss monster that you really need to pound over. Next, one Diamond Direwolf, just because he's very versatile. You know, you can use his effect to tribute your Zephyros in order to, you know, then you can pop a card on the field, or if need be, if there's really a card that you have to get rid of, you can summon this, detach, pop himself, just to pop that one card that you just can't get over. Next, for our rank 7s, we're running one Big Eye. Obviously, you have to run Big Eye in this deck. It's just so good to detach material and then steal your opponent's other card, your opponent's monster, and put it on your side of the field, and permanently. It doesn't go back during the end phase, and you do get to attack with it, and it's not like its effects are negated or anything. This card is damn near broken, but it's just so good in this deck, and you gotta run it. Next, we're running one Mecha Phantom Beast Dracosac. He's just really good for popping off other pesky cards that you need to get rid of. And then, just for some added protection, I just recently added this Redeyes Flare Metal Dragon. This card is just super good because it can't be destroyed by card effects while it has material, and you never detach material from this card, so it's always going to have that effect going off that it can't be destroyed by card effects. And then also, while it has material, whenever your opponent activates a card or effect, you get to inflict 500 damage to your opponent, which is just super nice because this deck has a lot of rebuttal power, if you will. You can easily go second with this deck, and you can kind of get over some really heavy stuff. But if you're going first and you draw into your Channeler, then you can use Channeler, get out your Dragon, and then get this card out. Your opponent goes, and I mean, if you're going up against Salamangreats or something, it takes so long for them to get enough effects off in order to pound over this card that your opponent's going to be getting rid of next to half their life points just to pound over this one card. Next, for our link plays, we're going to be going with two great flies. Now, there is a Link Harpie card in the OCG that has not been yet released in the TCG. So I would probably replace either one or both Great Flies once Harpie Conductor comes out in the TCG. However, this card's pretty good. You can use it along with your Harpie Lady 1 in order to just keep beefing up all of your wind monsters. But this is going to add 500 attack, and then also when this goes to the graveyard, then you're going to get a wind monster from your graveyard and add it back into your hand. So that's just really nice. Next, one Firefighting Daruma Doll. You've probably never heard of this card, but it works so great with beast warriors, beasts, or winged beast monsters, which all of our harpies again are winged beasts except for dragon, which is going to allow you to target a spell or trap on the field and destroy it whenever he's summoned, or just once per turn, I'm sorry. Which usually you don't use that too much because you're going to be wiping out all of your opponent's cards enough anyways, but also it's going to be able to get a winged beast monster that's banished or in your graveyard and add it back to your hand when this card gets destroyed by battle, which sometimes does happen. If your opponent does let you get that effect off, you know, they're kind of stupid, but and then also it's going to let you gain 100 attack to this card for each of your winged beasts that's in the graveyard. Next, One Nightmare Cerberus. Sorry I'm kind of rambling here and going on, but I really like explaining these effects off, and I will be going over more of these. I'll probably be dropping a strategical video, just a tutorial to go over whatever we're all running. Basic effects, strategies that work really solid for this deck. Anyways, just to wrap it up, one Saryuja, which I just got in my last unboxing video. If you watched that, this card could be used really well with its 4 link material effect in order to draw 4 cards and then replace 3 cards. You know, you could ditch back your Harpie Lady sisters or your dragon that you draw into, or just, I mean, otherwise just a good boss monster, get onto the field and you can use its other effects as needed. Otherwise just one Borolo dragon, or if you want to run Boral Sword, that's possible too, whatever you're feeling, but this is a 15 card extra deck and I think it works really solid. You've got some monster blow up power there, you get to negate effects, and basically anything that you really need to, you can kind of go into your extra deck and you can fix any of your problems that you got going on. Okay guys, lastly, just for a couple side deck options, I like to keep a Harpie Dancer in my side deck just because if you're going up against a deck which runs a lot of back row, you can use Harpie Dancer to either summon herself onto the field, send her back, and then summon her again, and keep using your Harpie's Hunting Ground in order to pop some of those pesky cards if you're going up against a heavy back row deck. Lastly, or second, another alluring mirror split, just in case you're going up against a pretty battle heavy deck, or if you're just really feeling like you want to even add just a second copy into your deck permanently. Otherwise, just a great side deck option. And lastly, I like to keep one Phalanx Pike in there. Now, this card used to be really solid back in the day, because when all of your Harpie Lady cards are treated as Harpie Lady in the graveyard, you can attach this onto any of your Harpie Ladies, and for every Harpie card in your graveyard except for your Harpie Lady sisters and your Harpies Pet Dragon, you're going to get an extra 900 attack for each of those. However, this card's just a little less viable now that Harpie's Feather Rest is in the deck and it's such a good engine for it. So I ended up taking this out of my deck. It's a good side deck option though for if you're going up against a deck that is going to be ditching a lot of your cards from your deck to the graveyard. If you're ever in a situation like that, go ahead and toss this in and hopefully you'll get that effect off where you've got a ton of Harpies in the graveyard and then you can just beat over something with, you know, 5,000 or more attack, just because the potential for this card is just super duper high. Anyways guys, that's going to do it for my Harpie deck profile. I really hope that you liked it. I've always loved this deck. I'm always going to be using this deck. Sorry if I kind of rambled through here, but there's just so much to talk about with this, and I'll be covering more in my upcoming tutorial video, which I'll try to drop within the week. Anyways, thanks for hanging with me. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and Common Collector out. Thanks, dudes.